In your opening, you spoke about the one big concern that you have, and that is around jobs. At the end of everything that we've heard here during the course of this summit, if I were to ask you to prioritize what you would like to see the corporate sector do, what you would like to see the government do, the 2 or 3 things, so that we actually move up on the agenda as far as job creation is concerned.
You know, along with what I witnessed in the last 2 days, somebody commented on why is textiles so important? I mean, do you think India should have that agenda as textiles? I mean,
it's one of the largest job creators in the world.
Yes, exactly. So I mean, I was just wondering, you know. So I think the key thing for us as corporates is that how do we look at a grassroots level employment of the youth population, because the non-farming jobs is critical. And apart from that, the women deployment is very, very important. I think that's where I think would be a key agenda for the corporates like us. That is critical.
But what do you think when you talk about the participation of women in the workforce? And it's unfortunate that in India, both when we talk about rural India as well as in urban India, the numbers are actually declining. So women participation in the workforce has declined over the last few years. What do you believe is the remedy? What is the answer, both from a corporate perspective as well as a government perspective?
See, the remedy from the corporate perspective is till we don't ourselves become the agents of change, until we don't take the commitment to do that. For instance, Welspun's vision for 2.0 is around 20% women at the workforce level. And we already have 40% in the senior leadership. And that's what I'm talking about, just textiles alone, which is very predominantly very men-oriented kind of an industry. So I think the commitment has to come in from our end. And skill development, I think the initiatives the government has taken, I think we have to take the lead and take that forward across all. Like the Skill India is very, very important. We actually take on 10,000, we actually skill 10,000 youth every year. And I think that becomes a very interesting initiative by what we do, and I think the government will also need to take that.
Okay, Ajay, I think it was, you also rated jobs as your #1 concern in your opening session. So, you know, it's a mammoth task and it's a mammoth challenge. But you and I were having the conversation before we came out where you said that we must approach this in bite-sized solutions so that we can actually go after the problem and attack it. If I were to ask you, how do we attack this challenge so that we actually deliver on the outcomes, what would you suggest?
So my view is that the reason I said jobs is because of the whole issue of the informal, formal economy and getting workers into that so you can get productivity going, including for women. And if you do that the right way, you can get a great improvement in where we are. The thing about bite-sized chunks is the following. You look at what Piyush was talking about his situation in the railways. Piyush, how many days have you been the minister now?
32.
32. And he's not counting. But in those 32 days, he's trying to create a plan to create 1 million jobs. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. Today, the World Economic Forum put out a report on tourism by this young lady in pink here. And what it says is that if you do the right things with tourism in India, you can get to create 1 million jobs in that sector. Just look at this. 1, 1, 2. I mean that is bite-sized chunks. To get tourism to go, you shouldn't try and solve and boil the ocean of getting the whole of India to somehow, tomorrow morning, or 3 years from now, or 15 years from now, become tourism friendly. Let's pick 10 places, and let's work on the infrastructure of those 10, not just to see the Taj, but to have other things to do when you go to Agra, to be able to have hotels you want to be with, to feel safe as a woman on the road, to be able to feel welcomed and not to be cheated upon by people, culturally, mindset. This is not different from what Piyush is saying. And what Dipali was saying earlier. So that's what I mean by bite-sized chunks. Break the problem down into bite-sized chunks, create a process of measuring it, put color coding against it saying, I'm working well on this one, not well on that one, and then go chase it down. I continue to believe that tourism is India's quickest return for jobs in the next 1 to 2 years. It's that much of an advantage. And I didn't understand that Piyush could generate 1 million. That's remarkable in the railways.
So I'll give you a simple thing. If I invest 150,000 crores, and if even 20% of that is labor cost, which I'm being very conservative by Indian standards, it's 30,000 crores. 30,000 crores. The railways people don't do that investment. It's all done through contracted and outsourced stuff. So that 20% is 30,000 crores, 3 lakh rupees per person at an average. Some may be less, some may be more. Is 1 million jobs. And I'm spending that every year.
So that's the...
By the way, I want to give you why I said Jan Bhagidari or people's involvement.
Yes.
And why it should be a collective effort. Ma'am spoke about tourism, which she alluded to. In the railways, what am I doing? We have 276 saloons, including a saloon which I can use to go anywhere in the railway. Right? It's a beautiful, luxurious saloon. You may love to go on that someday. But we are not planning to use
But I have to pay my Mastercard, right?
we are making sure that henceforth you'll have to pay. Right now, I can only give it to you as a favor.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But what we are doing is we are keeping those which are essential for any unfortunate accident or repair work or inspection work with the divisional managers, moving probably 150, 170 of them out of the divisions, creating luxury trains out of that. And I'll tell you the thinking. I'll have a train go from Delhi on the Budh circuit, Sarnath, Kushinagar, Gaya. And I'll tell you why I'm doing it. Because in those places we don't have very good hotel facilities, stay facilities. But these trains have beautiful staying facilities. So a Japanese can come on that train, stay in the night in that coach, good toilets, good everything. In the day, pays respects at the Budh tourist spot. Again, come back in the night, go to the next place. So his hotel, his stay, his toilet, everything is well taken care of. I'll probably add one or two Japanese translators or whatever countries, Chinese translators. And there, lo and behold, you've got without doing anything else, you've created infrastructure.
So my point about this was bite-sized chunks. You do that. That's one example. The ingenuity of this country will produce 5 more from that.
Well, we
get going.
We hope that will
tents, the luxury tents.
Sure. So tourism clearly, as is very evident from this panel, is one big idea that the government needs to take forward. And Sarita, yes, please do send the minister your report. But specifically on the need for public-private partnership to create social infrastructure, if I could broadly call it that, whether it's healthcare or education, and these have been experiments that various state governments have undertaken with the private sector, where you use the government infrastructure but get the private sector to actually run a school or run a hospital. The Niti Aayog, in fact, in its recent proposal, has suggested a PPP model where you use government infrastructure but it's actually given out to a private sector player. Do you believe that that is the idea for the future when we talk about improving the service at the last mile? Do you think that that is going to be an idea that will be given currency by this government?
There's no one size fits all in these things. You have to be open to ideas across the board. I'll tell you a small thing. We wanted to start station development. Companies are not coming forward. They wanted to see if this experiment works. So in Gandhinagar, the government gave out an EPC contract and the station is being developed. A hotel will come up and the tendering has been done. And a good company has got the tender to manage that hotel when it comes out. We've done it already so that the furnishing can be to their taste.
So you're using the real estate of the station?
The real estate of the station. It'll be a beautiful station and a hotel on top. Hotel given out on management contract like Hyatt and everybody takes. They take 3.5%. That's the tender price on which it went. Same formula. Technical specs, 5 people or whatever were shortlisted. And then in the financial bid, this company won. And once we have 3 or 4 such cases, then the general public will start taking interest. If EESL hadn't done the huge LED rollout, the private sector would never have reduced their prices by 90%.
Sure.
So I think every project has its own
back to the bite-sized chunks. If you do it in 10 places and it shows up as being a good idea, you can do it in 100 after.
Absolutely.
And that's what I feel we need to do. We need to bring our problems down to things we can manage and deal with, solve for them, and then run with them.
Ajay or Karan used the Bollywood analogy. I'll end with the cricketing analogy. I guess we're in the slog overs now, and let's hope that...
No. This is not the slog overs.
No?
This is boom time. Is the time to hit sixes and really go for the jugular.
So the heavy hitting starts now. All right. Piyush Goyal, Dipali, Goenka, Malvika, Ajay, Banga. Many thanks for joining us.